I know many people will probably misunderstand me today. Maybe you will call me heartless. Maybe you will think I broke someone's heart. But if you were standing where I stood, you might have made the very same decision. Because sometimes it is easier to lose one person than to risk losing the one you promised to love for the rest of your life. Today, I am finally going to tell the truth I have never shared with anyone. This is not a story about hatred. This is a story about love, and sometimes love survives behind the simple act of pressing the block button. I did not block her because she was a bad person. I blocked her because my wife is a wonderful woman. That is a difference many people will never understand. My life looked complete from the outside. I had respect, I had responsibilities, and I had a woman who stood beside me long before the world ever admired my success. She was my wife, my closest friend, my greatest peace, the quiet prayer behind every achievement in my life. Like every marriage, we had disagreements. We had moments of silence, but before we went to sleep each night, we always chose forgiveness over pride. That is why our home was never just a house. It was a place built on love. Then one day, someone from my past found her way back into my life. It started with a simple greeting, then a short message, then another message every few days. I always replied with kindness and respect, only enough to avoid being rude. But before long, I realized it was no longer just a friendly conversation. She wanted to know where I was, who I was with, when I would be free. I finally wrote to her with complete honesty. I am married. I love my wife with all my heart. I hope you will respect the boundaries of my marriage. I thought that would be the end of it. But the real test had only just begun. The next day, another message appeared. Then another, and another. The words were different every time, but the intention remained the same. She was trying to create a place for herself in a relationship where no third person should ever belong. After reading every message, I asked myself only one question. If our roles were reversed, if another man kept sending messages like these to my wife, would it not break my heart? That single question placed the hardest decision of my life right in front of me. And perhaps that decision became the strongest proof of how deeply I truly loved my wife. I stared at my phone for a long time without touching the screen. Sometimes the hardest decisions in life are not made with words, they are made with silence. Every new notification felt heavier than the one before. It was no longer about a conversation, it had become a test of my character, a test of my loyalty, a test of whether the vows I made to my wife were only beautiful words spoken on our wedding day or promises I intended to keep for the rest of my life. Many people believe betrayal begins with a kiss. They are wrong. Betrayal begins the moment you allow someone else to occupy the space in your heart that belongs to your spouse. That space is sacred. Once it is shared with the wrong person, trust slowly begins to disappear. One evening, my wife walked into the room carrying 2 cups of coffee. She smiled the same gentle smile that had become my favorite place in the world. She had no idea what was happening. She had no reason to doubt me. She simply placed the cup beside me and asked, "Are you tired today?" I looked into her eyes. There was nothing but love, nothing but trust, nothing but peace. And in that very moment, I realized something that changed me forever. The woman sitting in front of me had never asked me to prove my loyalty. She never checked my phone. She never questioned every late meeting. She never searched for reasons to distrust me. She trusted the man she married completely. That kind of trust is rare. It is priceless. It deserves protection every single day. Later that night, another message arrived. This time, it was longer. It spoke about memories, about moments from years ago, about what life could have been if circumstances had been different. For a brief second, I felt the weight of nostalgia, not because I wanted another life, but because every human being remembers pieces of the past. Then I looked across the room. My wife had fallen asleep while reading a book. The book rested gently against her chest. One lamp filled the room with warm light. She looked peaceful, safe, comfortable. That peaceful moment reminded me of something. Real love is not excitement. Real love is security. It is coming home after a difficult day and finding someone who still chooses you. It is sharing breakfast without speaking because silence itself feels comfortable. It is growing older without fearing tomorrow because you know someone is walking beside you. No message in the world could compete with that. I placed my phone face down, not because I was hiding anything, but because I wanted my attention exactly where it belonged, on the woman who had trusted me with her entire life. The following morning, another message appeared. Why are you ignoring me? I answered politely. I am not ignoring you. I am protecting my marriage. Please understand that there is a difference. A few minutes passed before another reply arrived. She wrote, your wife does not have to know. I read those words twice. Then I smiled sadly, because anyone who truly respects love would never write a sentence like that. Secrets are expensive. Sooner or later, someone always pays the price. And I had no intention of making my wife pay for a secret she never deserved. I placed my phone back into my pocket. For the first time, I felt absolutely certain. This was no longer about kindness. It was about boundaries. Healthy boundaries are not walls built out of hatred. They are doors that protect the people we love. That evening, my wife asked me a simple question. If you could relive your life, would you still choose me? She asked it while laughing, as if it were only a playful conversation. She had no idea how deeply those words reached my heart. Without thinking for even 1 second, I answered, I would choose you sooner. Her smile grew wider. She laughed. Then she rested her head on my shoulder. She never knew that while she was smiling, someone else was trying to become part of the life we had built together. And she never needed to know, because protecting someone you love sometimes means fighting battles they never even see. A few days later, the messages became more emotional. She said she only wanted friendship. She said she admired me. She said she respected my marriage. Yet, every new message quietly crossed another boundary. Actions always speak louder than explanations. People who truly respect your marriage do not repeatedly test its limits. That night, I sat alone in complete silence. I unlocked my phone one last time. I opened the conversation. I read every message from beginning to end. Not with anger, not with pride, but with complete clarity. Then I whispered something to myself that I will never forget. The greatest love story in my life is not the one I almost had. It is the one I wake up beside every single morning. I pressed the block button. There was no celebration, no feeling of victory, only peace. A deep, quiet peace that cannot be described. Because in that single moment, I was not rejecting another person. I was choosing my wife again. Just as I had chosen her on our wedding day. Just as I would choose her tomorrow. And every day after that. Love is not measured by how many people admire you. Love is measured by the one person you refuse to lose. The next morning felt different. Not because the world had changed, but because my heart had become lighter. Peace has a strange way of making ordinary mornings feel extraordinary. I woke up before sunrise. The house was completely quiet. I walked toward the kitchen to make breakfast. A few minutes later, I heard soft footsteps behind me. My wife smiled and wrapped her arms around me from behind. Good morning. Those two simple words carried more warmth than 1,000 messages ever could. She did not know what decision I had made. She did not know what temptation I had walked away from. She simply looked at me with the same love she had always given me. That is the beauty of genuine love. It never demands proof every single day. It simply grows stronger when you protect it. As we sat together drinking coffee, she started talking about small things. The flowers she wanted to plant in the garden, a movie she hoped we could watch together over the weekend, a family trip she had been quietly planning for months. She spoke with excitement. I listened with gratitude because I suddenly realized something. While someone else was trying to pull me into unnecessary drama, the woman sitting across from me was dreaming about building a beautiful future with me. One person wanted my attention, the other wanted my lifetime. There is a world of difference between those two things. Later that afternoon, I received an email from someone I had not spoken to in years. For a brief moment, curiosity took over. I opened it. It was from the same woman. She had found another way to reach me. She wrote that she only wanted closure. She said she deserved one last conversation. She claimed I was being unfair. As I read every sentence, I noticed something important. Not once did she ask what would protect my marriage. Everything she wrote was about what she wanted. Real love never asks you to sacrifice your integrity for someone else's feelings. Real love protects. It never destroys. I closed the email without replying. Then I permanently blocked that account as well. Not because I hated her, but because I loved someone else more. People often misunderstand loyalty. They think loyalty is difficult when everything is going well. The truth is, loyalty is revealed when nobody is watching. When nobody would ever know the choice you made. Character is built in private, not in public. That evening, my wife and I went for a long walk. The sun was slowly disappearing behind the horizon. She reached for my hand without saying a single word. I smiled. There is something incredibly powerful about holding the same hand year after year. It reminds you that love is not about finding someone new. It is about continuing to choose the one who has already chosen you. We stopped near a quiet lake. The water reflected the colors of the evening sky. She looked at me and asked, "Do you ever worry that one day we will change?" I looked at her for a long moment before answering. Of course, we will change. Our hair will turn gray. Our faces will grow older. Our bodies will become weaker. But if our hearts keep choosing each other, then every change will become another reason to love one another even more. I watched tears slowly fill her eyes. She squeezed my hand a little tighter. Then she whispered something I will carry for the rest of my life. "Thank you for making me feel safe." Those words touched me more deeply than she could ever imagine. Because safety is one of the greatest gifts a husband can give his wife. Not expensive gifts, not luxury vacations, not perfect photographs, but emotional safety, the confidence that her heart will never be competing with another woman. That night, she fell asleep, resting her head against my shoulder. I stayed awake for a while, watching the peaceful expression on her face, thinking about how fragile trust really is. It takes years to build, only seconds to destroy. And sometimes all it takes to protect it is the courage to press one simple button. Many people believe romance is found in dramatic speeches. I disagree. Romance is found in ordinary decisions, answering honestly, walking away from temptation, respecting boundaries, keeping promises even when breaking them would be easy. That is the kind of love that survives decades. That is the kind of love children grow up admiring. That is the kind of love that still exists when beauty fades and success disappears. Before I finally closed my eyes that night, I whispered a quiet prayer. Thank you for giving me the wisdom to recognize the difference between attention and affection, between temptation and commitment, between excitement and peace, because I almost forgot something every married man should remember. The greatest privilege in life is not being desired by many women. The greatest privilege is being trusted by one woman who has given you her entire heart. And I silently promised myself, as long as she continues choosing me, I will spend every single day choosing her. A few weeks passed in complete peace. The messages had stopped. The silence remained. Life slowly returned to the way it had always been. At least that is what I believed. One afternoon, my wife was arranging old family photographs on the dining table. She laughed every time she found a picture that brought back a beautiful memory. I sat beside her. Together, we turned one page after another. Every photograph carried a story. Every smile reminded us that love is not built in a single day. It is built one ordinary moment at a time. She suddenly held up a picture from our first year of marriage. Do you remember this day? I smiled immediately. How could I ever forget? That was the day we had almost nothing. Our apartment was small. Our furniture was simple. We counted every dollar before buying anything. But somehow we laughed more than we do today. She smiled softly. Maybe because we knew we only had each other. Her answer stayed with me. Only each other. Those words were worth more than every luxury life had given us later. That evening we cooked dinner together. She insisted on making my favorite meal even though she had worked all day. I offered to help. She laughed and handed me the vegetables. You always cut them too big. I laughed with her. Those little moments may sound ordinary to someone else, but to me, they were priceless. Because true love is rarely found in grand celebrations. It is hidden inside ordinary evenings that become unforgettable memories. While dinner was cooking, the doorbell rang. A delivery driver handed me a small envelope. There was no return address, only my name. I opened it carefully. Inside was a short handwritten note. I only wanted one chance to explain myself. Please don't hate me. I stood there quietly, looking at those few lines. My wife noticed my expression. Is everything all right? She asked with complete innocence. For one brief second, I had two choices. I could hide the truth, or I could protect the honesty our marriage had always been built upon. Without hesitation, I walked over to her, placed the note in her hands, and said, I want you to read this because there should never be secrets between us. She looked surprised. She read every word slowly. When she finished, she looked up at me. There was no anger in her eyes, only sadness. She asked one simple question. Did you answer? I gently shook my head. No, I blocked every possible way she could contact me because I chose us. Tears slowly rolled down my wife's face. Not tears of pain, but tears of relief. She stood up, wrapped both arms around me, and whispered, Thank you for protecting my heart even when I didn't know it needed protection. I closed my eyes, holding her a little tighter. That embrace meant more to me than applause from the entire world. In that moment, I understood something many people never learn. Trust grows stronger when truth arrives before suspicion. If I had hidden that letter, even with good intentions, one day it might have become a reason for doubt. But honesty leaves no room for fear. That night, we sat together on our balcony. The city lights stretched across the horizon. The evening breeze carried a peaceful silence. My wife rested her head on my shoulder. Can I tell you something? She asked quietly. Always. I answered. She smiled. I never worried because another woman was prettier than me, or younger than me, or more exciting than me. The only thing I ever prayed for was that your heart would always find its way back to mine. Those words touched a place inside me that no one else could ever reach. I took her hand gently. Look at me. She lifted her eyes. There will always be people in this world who admire success, who chase attention, who confuse attraction with love. But there is only one woman who stood beside me before anyone applauded my victories. Only one woman who prayed for me without asking for anything in return. Only one woman who made this house feel like home. That woman is you. And as long as I have breath in my body, no temporary emotion, no passing attraction, no unexpected message will ever become more important than the promise I made to you. She smiled through her tears. Then she laughed softly. You know, she said, I think I fell in love with you all over again tonight. I smiled back. Maybe that is the secret to a lasting marriage. You never stop giving each other new reasons to fall in love again. As the night grew quieter, I looked up at the stars for the first time in many weeks. My heart carried no burden, no guilt, no unanswered questions, only gratitude. Because I finally understood that the strongest love is not the one that survives temptation by accident. It is the one that survives because every single day, two people wake up, look at each other, and choose one another all over again. Years have passed since that day. Life continued moving forward. The seasons changed. Our hair slowly turned gray. The house became quieter. But one thing never changed. Every morning I still reach for the same hand. The hand that had trusted me with her heart. Sometimes people ask me what the secret to a happy marriage is. They expect me to talk about romance, luxury, perfect vacations, or expensive gifts. I simply smile because the real secret is much smaller than that. It is found in the quiet decisions nobody else ever sees. It is choosing respect over attention, honesty over secrecy, commitment over temptation, every single day. One evening, we sat together watching the sunset. My wife rested her head on my shoulder, exactly the way she had done countless times before. She looked at me and smiled. If you could go back and change one decision in your life, would you change anything? I looked at her, then at the sky, then back into the eyes of the woman who had become my greatest blessing. I answered without hesitation. There is only one thing I would change. I would block that door even sooner. Not because I hated someone, but because I loved you too much to let anything stand between us. She smiled with tears in her eyes. Then she gently held my face in her hands. Thank you, not for blocking someone, but for protecting what we built together. Those words became the greatest reward I have ever received. Not an award, not success, not recognition, Just hearing the woman I love say she always felt safe with me. That is a victory no amount of wealth can ever replace. Today I share this story for one reason. If you truly love someone, protect their peace even when they never ask you to. Do not entertain conversations that weaken your promises. Do not allow temporary attention to destroy permanent love. Because loyalty is not proven when everything is easy. Loyalty is proven when you quietly walk away from what could have broken the heart of the person waiting for you at home. I never blocked someone because I was stronger than anyone else. I blocked someone because every time I looked at my wife, I remembered the vows I made. I remembered every sacrifice she made for us. I remembered every prayer she whispered for me when nobody else was watching. And I realized that one faithful decision can protect a lifetime of happiness. So if anyone ever asks me why I blocked her forever, my answer will always remain the same.